It is Jeju Sweater cast on day. Hello, my name is Laura and welcome to a fall knitting vlog. The main focus for this vlog is going to be me casting on and finishing a Jeju sweater by Aegyo Knit. Now, this is a sweater that I have been wanting to make for at least 2 years. I want to say maybe even going back to when I first learned how to knit like almost 4 years ago. I don't know. But this is a sweater that I've been wanting to make for a while. But overall, the goal of this video and this project is just to have something that makes me feel like fall, and definitely like academia, going back to school vibes, the weather getting slightly colder, though it is gonna be like 90 degrees today. It's fine. That kind of aesthetic and energy is what I'm wanting to kind of work on for the next little bit, and I'm very, very excited to share that. To get into the actual sweater and talk about the yarn that I have chosen, I have decided to go with Knitting for Olive, Merino, and Soft Silk Mohair. And I've chosen this because for me, it's tried and true. I know I really love it. And they also had the perfect color for my main color, and let me show you what that is. So for my main color, I was really torn between the gray that she uses in her sample or a deep brown, and ultimately I decided to go for a deep brown because I think that would match my kind of skin tone and color palette a little bit better. But also I already have a couple gray items in my wardrobe, and I think there's always room for more brown just because it is a little more neutral for my color palette. So the brown that I have chosen is Brown Bear, both in the Merino and the Soft Silk Mohair, and that is what this looks like. It is just a deep chocolate brown. Now, the thing I'll say is the mohair does have a lighter strand running through it, like the silk strand, I think. It still looks brown, but it looks light brown, like it more matches my hair color than it does the Brown Bear overall tone. However, when I knit up the swatch, that kind of went away. Like this is after it's been washed and blocked. Ooh, I don't know if it's gonna show up. It's so dark. But take my word for it, the kind of lighter strand of the silk went away. Now, this is still ever so slightly damp because I'm impatient. So I don't know if that light color will come back, but really I'm fine either way. Like this just solid block of brown looks beautiful, but also if the strand of like the light silk through it comes back a little bit, I think that's fine. It just adds a little texture to the sweater, and I think that'll be beautiful. So that is my main color that I've decided to go for. And then for my contrast color, I definitely wanted to go with a white color. And so I had some Soft Silk Mohair Limestone left over from another project. I've got a full 25-gram ball, and then I also have a little bit more than that left over. So this is gonna be the mohair that I'm holding. But then also, I just kind of wanted to try out the Knitting for Olive Cloud in their Merino. And this is a pretty pink looking Merino. And you can especially see like the limestone is so gray and the cloud is so pink compared to it. I'm a little nervous after seeing this now that I hope they balance out and blend well into a nice just overall white looking color. I think it'll be fine. But really, I just really wanted to see what the cloud looked like in person before I bought a whole sweater quantity of this for a future project. But overall, the beautiful Brown Bear is going to be the shining star of this sweater, and I think the contrast, it'll look good no matter what, hopefully. So those are the yarns that I am going to be using for this sweater. The last thing that I want to touch on is the positive ease that comes along with this sweater. The sample photo is very slouchy and very oversized, and it looks so good. However, I was reading the actual dimensions of the finished sizes, and because I exactly hit gauge, I had to go up a needle size, so this is 4.5mm needles instead of the recommended 4, but I did exactly hit gauge, and so this tells me that my finished garment will be pretty much what she says it'll be in the pattern. Now, I normally go for the second or third size in most sweater patterns, but this one has a more limited size range. I think there's only 5 or 6 sizes to choose from. And so I originally thought I was just gonna go for a size 2, which does correspond to my bust measurement. But what I did is I laid out my cloud sweater, which is my largest or my most positive ease drop shoulder sweater that I've made so far. And I laid out what the size 2 dimensions would be. And it is like going to be a total of 8 inches bigger than my cloud sweater, which already has a lot of positive ease. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to cast on the size 1 in the Jeju sweater, which is still, by the way, going to have like 4 more inches of positive ease than my cloud sweater. But I'm gonna start with the size 1, and fortunately the upper back starts similarly, and so I could easily just like rip back a little bit and add more if I decide to go up a size. So I'm gonna start with the size 1, kind of knit a little bit of that, hold it up against my cloud sweater, see how I'm liking the size of that, and then pick a different size from there if I need to. All that being said, I am so very excited to cast on my Jeju sweater. I'm gonna start with the size 1, see if I like it, and we'll go from there. It has only been about 2 hours since I first cast on, but I wanted to film a little update because I have decided to make some major pattern modifications. So basically what happened is I started working the pattern as it says, and I realized that this is the same upper back shoulder construction as the porcelain sweater, where to make your increases for the back, you basically knit a little bit and then cast on stitches at the end of every row. And what that does is it kind of creates like a stair step effect as you go across the shoulder. And I remember not loving this with my porcelain sweater. Not only did it look a little weird, but also I remember picking up stitches for the front sections being a little bit difficult. And I did notice that kind of the same effect was happening with the Jeju sweater, where every time I went to go cast on new stitches at the end of a row, there would be this little gap that formed between like where the last row had ended and where you're casting on the new stitches. So the first modification that I have decided to make is, instead of doing the cast on stitches at the end of each row method, I've decided to just do German short rows. So what this means is I cast on my full amount of stitches for the back panel, and then my German short row interval is that same number of stitches that I would have been casting on at the end of a row, if that makes sense. So ultimately, the amount of rows that I'm knitting is the same as if I would have done the cast on method, but this way it doesn't create that stair step effect, mostly. Because I'm knitting a larger number of stitches between each turn of a German short row, it does ever so slightly create that stair step effect, but it is not nearly as bad, and there's no hole since my entire top row was already cast on. So let me show you what that looks like. And yeah, it's not much to look at. I don't even know if I can show it properly, but yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to. Take my word for it. It looks okay. So I'm actually pretty happy with that modification. It was a fairly easy one. I just had to think about it for just a second. Now, that kind of led into the second major pattern modification that I've decided to make. With this method, you have to already know what number of stitches you want to cast on. And like I mentioned, I was kind of like waffling between a size 1 and a size 2, and the pattern wants you to cast on a certain number of stitches, knit for a certain length, and then you start increasing under the underarms. but the size 2 amount of stitches around the body is going to be more oversized than what I really want. So I thought about it, did all the math, and decided that I'm going to knit the shoulders of a size 2, but instead of doing increases for the body, I'm just going to knit straight and then just, cast on a couple stitches just to get me up to the correct stitch count because it is a color work chart. And then I'll ultimately end up with the body circumference of a size 1. So I hope that all makes sense. To me, it makes sense. And honestly, it makes it a little easier because I can just knit to a certain length for the upper pieces and I don't have to think about doing body increases. So hopefully it works out. On the one hand, if it works out and turns out to be exactly what I want, super, super cool that I am able to pull my experience of working on other patterns and apply that to future patterns to kind of change construction. And that just comes with doing a lot of projects and knowing the different types of German short rows versus like increases on the shoulders, all that good stuff. And also just personally knowing what I enjoy the fit of. I know with some other sweaters that the shoulders end up being the same width as the body. I personally love the fit of those sweaters on me. So I really, really hope this works out. And if it doesn't, then I tried something. It was a lesson learned and we'll figure it out. But for now, that's what I'm gonna keep doing. So essentially, the German short rows for my upper back panel are done and I am just going to be knitting flat for a while. Okay, the upper back panel is completely done and I've gone ahead and knit the left front and this is what it's looking like so far. Super, super sweet. And I wanted to kind of make a couple of observations so far. The first of which is the color of the yarn. And whenever I started this project, my swatch was not completely dry yet. And so I wasn't sure if the lighter color in the mohair was going to come back out because I think my swatch was just still wet at the time, but it is completely dry now. And if you can see that, hopefully you can, the lighter strand in the mohair is showing up. And I know sometimes I might not like this look, but I think for this project, having that kind of show up, I think gives a little interest to the texture and just gives like, I don't know, it kind of breaks up just like these solid blocks of brown. So I'm actually really, really glad that the color dried that way and that I will be able to see the strand, like just the, I wouldn't even call it white. I would say it's just a lighter brown, like a lot lighter brown strand of silk going through the silk mohair. So I am really glad that this is going to show up. So that's the first observation. Just very glad with how the color's coming out. The second one is the shoulder seam. So I've gone ahead and knit the front left and that makes it easy to see the shoulder seams. I'm going to hold that up and I hope you can tell, but you still kind of have, like, I can actually see it really well when I hold it up this way. You still kind of have like these holes where even though I did short rows instead of increases, like instead of like casting on like so many stitches at the end of each row, I decided to cast on all of my stitches and then just work short rows. And so even though I've done that, you still kind of get some holes in the fabric just because like that's a lot of stitches to do short rows across. Like I feel like normal patterns, you only do short rows across like 3 to 5 stitches and this was more than that. So you still kind of have that, but I recently wore my porcelain sweater that had the same like shoulder construction where you cast on stitches at the end of each row instead of doing short rows. And I do not like that shoulder seam and how this looks. And so I would say that this is already coming out nicer than that. So I am very glad that I made that change. Honestly, I don't know why that would be used as a construction method. Like I understand the point is that you just want to have like a more shallow short row section on the upper back, or like a more shallow like slope. Like you don't want it to like the back shoulders to be like this, like you want it to be a little more flat, but that can be accomplished with short rows. So I'm not really sure the reason for going with this method. I know casting on stitches at the end of a row is not my preferred method, so I am glad I skipped that. And I think the seam looks fairly nice for what it is. And I did not change the front collar where she does use just like the cast on stitches method to make increases for the neck. I just left that alone because I didn't feel like, I don't know, using my brain to try and do that differently. But honestly, that's fine. That is like fewer stitches that you're casting on at a time. So I think it's going to be less noticeable. So that is that. Last observation is that I'm a little nervous that the neck is going to be very wide. So let me see if I can show this well. But this is where I'm going to stop picking up stitches on the other side. And I feel like this area is a lot. So I don't know if the neckline is just supposed to be a lot bigger, or if this is just like a normal neckline and it's just been a minute since I've knit a drop shoulder sweater and I don't know, paid attention to that. So we'll see. I think I am going to knit the collar as early on as I can while still feeling like comfortable with where I'm at, like putting stitches on hold. I hate having a bunch of like stitches on different cords and then you're just like, I don't know, it gets tangled really quickly. But I think I will try to knit the collar somewhat early on so that I can see whether or not I'm gonna not like that design. That is it for this little sweater update. I got a couch. Getting this couch into this room started out a bit like that scene from Friends, and did unfortunately end with the couch being partially disassembled on the staircase. But the important thing is that it's here now, and it is so perfect. I've had a vision for this room to become more of like a study, in that the aesthetic of it is a little darker, a little more earthy tones, and I knew that I wanted a green velvet couch to be the focal point. And so I had been surfing Facebook Marketplace for a few weeks, and a woman was practically giving this away. And so I ran to go pick up this couch from her before anyone else could have it. And it is so lovely. And then on top of that, I spent about an hour yesterday going through the National Museum archives or something like that. And basically, because a lot of these artworks are now in the public domain, you can just download them and then get them printed for your own personal use. And that was my intention, and I still haven't completely given up on it. But when I went to go actually put these paintings into a website to get them printed, it seems like getting them printed in the original dimensions, or at least in the original proportions of the paintings, seems to be a bit of a challenge. So I didn't want to spend too much more time going down that rabbit hole just yet. And so I thought I would go out in the wild and try my luck at just some local stores to get some cool prints. And wouldn't you know it, Home Goods, of all places, had a bunch of Monet prints just available. And so I went through them, and I did actually find one that I am super excited about. It wasn't the one that I downloaded from the museum archives, but I think this one is going to fit the wall really, really well. So I found that, and then I also found one other poster that I'm really excited about. My light just went out. Anyway, I'm on the tail end of losing my voice. It's almost back, but not quite. So I'm not going to make you listen to me for too much longer, but I am going to hang up those prints and then maybe do just a little bit more decorating in this corner of the room. jump scare, I am over halfway done with the color work on this sweater. I didn't mean to go this long without a check-in, but I lost my voice for like a solid week straight. And so I just got a lot of knitting done and didn't want to have to talk and film an update. But now that we're at this point, I figured I probably need to do a real update. So kind of where we're at. I mentioned that I was worried about how few stitches were picked up on the shoulder and how that would make the neckline too open. And I thought I could get past that. And I did knit, you know, both sides like the pattern called for, joined in the front, and I started knitting the front flat section. And I just could not get over it. And so I ripped out the entire front, you know, yoke and like redid both front sections and combined again in the front. And so what that looked like is I really only picked up, I think like 4 or 5 extra stitches at the shoulder, but looking at it, to me at least, I think it made a really big difference, and I think I'm gonna be happier with the end result, honestly, and like how the neckline kind of closed a little bit, because before it was very, I would call it like long and flat, and then now it's like I did the same depth, but I just brought it in just a little bit, and so I think I'm gonna be happier with that overall fit. So that was like 2 or 3 days of reknitting, honestly. Like I was a little upset to have like lost a couple days working on that, but it's okay. Honestly, I feel like it's worth it if I get an end result that I am much happier with. So that is kind of the modification that I've made there. But then going into the color work, this is the really exciting part. So the color work does start pretty much immediately after joining in the round. So the first couple rounds were a little fiddly, just like, I don't know, I feel like the first round joining in the body is always a little fiddly, but this is what I have so far. I have done 2.5 color work chart repeats, and the pattern only calls for 4, in which I'm like a slightly taller than average person, not really, but I kind of have a long torso, so I may add another color work chart. I haven't decided yet, but I am 2.5 into it, and I wanted to show you or kind of share some thoughts on that. So the first thing that I wanted to share is really just about the pattern itself, which is catching floats. And I just like looking at the sweater online was kind of thinking like, oh, you know, you're not gonna have to really catch like any floats, like maybe on the really like long sections of white or something. But what I guess my eye didn't catch is that the pattern is mirrored. Like for some reason, when I was looking at the pictures online, I only saw these large white diamonds, and I didn't also see the brown diamonds. So I personally am catching my floats every other round, which makes this a slow process. I'm already a slow color work knitter to begin with, and I actually want to show you how I knit my color work here in a second. And you'll find out I'm a very slow color work knitter, and having to catch my floats every other round just adds to that, but it's okay. I'm knitting it because it's enjoyable and not because it's fast, but I am really enjoying the pattern. So that's pretty much it. It's just I don't know, 12 round repeat of the color work chart, and it's going pretty well. And I am just surprised at how fast I'm flying through this for a slow knitter. My dog is trying to get comfortable under the table here. Okay, and then really the only other update that I wanted to share with you is the yarn and kind of how the color is looking together. I came outside because, one, it's a beautiful, beautiful fall day, but then also it might show you the color like a little more true. And so I mentioned that the merino that I'm holding is Knitting for Olive in the color Cloud. Yeah, sky or cloud. So that's this one. And then the mohair that I'm holding is Limestone. And the cloud is a pinky white. Like it's, both of these are advertised as whites. This is definitely more pink, and then this is definitely more gray. And I wasn't really worried about how these would look together For some reason, don't know why I wasn't worried, but having no expectations going into this, I am pleasantly surprised at the color that it's creating. Basically, when I look at this, let me see if I can hold this up well enough. I personally just see white. You can see my dog over there. But like, I personally think that these two canceled out well enough to just create a white color. And actually looking at it side by side like this, it might be leaning a little more towards the limestone, which I feel like mohair kind of does. It tends to take over like the fingering weight strand that you hold it with. But I think it balances enough, and especially contrasted against the brown, it's just a white color. And yeah, which, you know, surprising, these are both white yarns, but definitely like individually the tints are very strong. And then together, they kind of cancel out, which I am pleasantly surprised with. So anyway, that is the sweater update. I thought I would stop and do the neckline, but I just didn't really get to a good point, and I hate to like knit the neckline while I have 4 balls of yarn still attached to the sweater. So I think as soon as I finish the color work, I'll do that. But for now, this is it. And now my goal is to finish the color work today, but before I get too much further in that, I do want to show you how I knit color work as an English style knitter. All right, so as an English style knitter, first of all, I have tried knitting continental. It's just maybe not it for me right now. So for now, I am an English style knitter. And so what I do for color work is I've got my main color, and I usually keep it over top, just out of the way. And then my contrast color comes from underneath my main color. So I'll knit that English style. Set it down. And then to switch colors, I'll just pick that one up and knit. And whenever I go to switch colors like this first stitch is coming from 3 away in this instance. And so whenever I pull the first stitch, I usually keep it pretty loose. Like, I don't pull on this one a lot. My float is pretty loose so that in blocking, it's got kind of somewhere to go just in case it needs to loosen up. Like, the float isn't keeping it too tight. The last thing I wanted to show you about my color work is how I catch my floats. And as soon as some of you see this, you're probably going to scream that there is a faster way to do this. And I feel like there probably is, but this is just how I do it. And my method is essentially where I twist my yarns. And so what that looks like is I'll go to knit, and then I'll put it into the stitch. Now this is 5 stitches total that I'm gonna knit in my main color, so I like to catch my float on the 3rd stitch. So with my kind of main yarn on top of my hand, I'll go underneath it, grab my contrast color, and kind of flip it to where it's now on top. And so they've basically crossed. So my contrast color now lays over top of my main color. And so then I just set down the contrast color, pick up the main color again, and keep knitting. And so then underneath, my contrast color has been caught right there. So I think there is probably a faster way where maybe I put them both in the same bag and like twist the bag around or something, but I don't have that handy. And so this is a pretty fast method where you just kind of go underneath, grab it, and put it on top. And honestly, this is the piece that makes my color work really slow. And like I said, for this pattern, you basically, well, I catch my floats pretty much every other round. So it definitely slows down the process by a good bit, but I'd say it's worth it. And oh, the reason that I do that though is, like I mentioned, for your color that you want to be dominant, it always needs to be underneath your main color. And so I don't know if you can see it very well, but my main color is always, the float at least, is always on top, and then my contrast color is underneath. And so I did try another method where you catch your float without twisting your yarns, but I found that then that would flop the color dominance back and forth every time I did it. And that was just something that I didn't want to have happen in my color work. So this is just a method that I found maintains my color dominance so that it doesn't flop back and forth throughout the pattern.
Hello! I have made significant progress on my sweater and I wanted to share that with you. And I'm honestly surprised at how much I've been able to accomplish because I really have not had that much knitting time these past couple weeks. I don't know, just life and work getting busy, but I am very, very happy with the progress that I've made so far. And so I wanted to show you that. But before I put on the sweater, I wanted to show you this skirt that I got. So it is the last weekend in October right now, and it's just, I mean, the leaves aren't like completely turning yet, but like the temperature outside is like perfect fall weather. And we had family photos last weekend, and so I specifically went out and bought this skirt, and I just wanted to show you really quick because it's very cute. So here's the skirt. And I hope you can see that, but it's just so cute. It's got pockets too. Like, oh, it's just like this perfect orange corduroy. It's like a corduroy material and it's so flippin' cute. I got it from Cezanne, which I have never bought anything from them before, but they have a pop-up store in Nashville that I went and just kind of like peeked in. Like I saw this skirt online and I kind of knew that I wanted it, but I do not risk buying pants or anything like that online because 9 times out of 10 they just don't fit. So I am so glad that I got to go in person and try it on and pick it out, and it fits beautifully. Don't ask me how much I spent on this. It was a treat. It was a fall treat. But anyway, just wanted to show you my skirt really quick. But let me put on the sweater and show you what I've done so far. Okay, here is what we have. Oh my gosh. So what I have done so far is the entire yoke. I went ahead and did the collar. The color work is done, and I've done the front ribbing, but I still have the back ribbing left to go. So that's just on hold right now. But it's turning out honestly so amazing, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe halfway done with the first sleeve. And so this is what it's looking like so far. And I have not done any like mid-project blocking, so I think the color work still needs to relax just a little bit compared to the yoke, but then also the ribbing like definitely needs to stretch out and lay flat. I also bought some blocking pins. What are they called? It's like the combs, the blocking combs, so that I can like really pin down the color work and the ribbing whenever it's time to block. But anyway, and so this is the sleeve so far. Kind of cute. Now, I have made so many changes to this pattern, and I'm honestly so glad that I have so far. I mean, not finished, not blocked, but the process and how I'm kind of seeing it turn out so far, I'm very happy with. And so one thing that I knew that I wanted to change as soon as I read through the pattern is the pattern says to just pick up stitches and then just knit straight on your sleeves. Don't do any decreases or increases or anything. But I personally like the look of, I still like the look of a wide sleeve, but I think what happens when you just knit straight is that so much of the weight of the sleeve is pulling at the top that it makes the top of the sleeve look thinner than the end of the sleeve, and so it ends up kind of looking like you have a bell sleeve even though you knit straight. So what I'm doing for my sweater is I'm doing, I think, like a total of 4 or 5 decrease rounds, and so for me that's been every 20 rounds. I just do like knit 2 together at the beginning and then slip slip knit at the end of the round. and I'm hoping that kind of creates the effect of still pretty much a straight sleeve, but it kind of avoids that like bell look at the end of the sleeve, because I'm not personally like a huge fan of that. So that's what I'm doing here, and I think it's turning out okay. I've got at least one more decrease to go because the actual ribbing in the pattern is like this much, like it's so little. So I think I'll probably do 1.5 more decreases just to get up to the correct stitch count, but very, very excited about that so far. Okay, and then another kind of modification that I made is I changed the pickup ratio for the neckband. And even here, I hope you can see that. It might be a little too dark, but like it's kind of bunching around the neckband, and I'm really hoping that that just relaxes with blocking. But that is even picking up more stitches than she said to in the pattern. And so I knew like around the back of the neck that if I picked up the number of stitches that the pattern recommended, it would have bunched even more. And so I did in the back of the neck 1 stitch per stitch, because you're also going down like to a smaller needle size. So I did, you know, 1 stitch in each stitch at the back of the neck. I did 2 out of 3 on the side, and then 1 per 1 stitch on the front. So I think it helped a little. So I cannot even imagine what it'd have been like skipping stitches on the back and front, but still it's kind of bunching up just a little bit. I'm hoping that that relaxes out just a little bit. So that's the neckline. You can kind of see the ends, but like here's, I don't know if you can see that, but there's the back. I don't know if it's too dark, but I don't think the back is bunching at all. And I'm very happy about that. So the only thing on the neckline is, for some reason, it's just been a minute since I've done a double folded neckband. And so to tie it down or to knit it down, I like knitted it down while binding off the stitches at the same time, as opposed to binding off all my stitches and then going back and sewing it down. And even doing that, I skipped every 3rd stitch. So I would like attach 2, skip 1. Like I would just bind off the stitch without attaching it on the fold line. And I think that helped a little with making the neckline like a little stretchier, but it's not like quite as stretchy as it could be. And I'm also wondering if part of that is just the fact that it's mohair, and mohair in itself is just like a little bit less stretchy than just straight wool. So I don't know, I can get it over my head easily, but it definitely like messes up my eyebrows and my makeup and whatever. So I may go back and loosen that up later if it doesn't get better with blocking, but I'm hoping with everything that it gets better with blocking. So all that to say, this is my sweater so far, and I think it is turning out super, super sweet. I am very, very excited for the finished result. And yeah, I think I can definitely get this sleeve done today, pick up for the 2nd sleeve, and I don't know, probably get the 2nd sleeve done in the next couple of days. I have to work tomorrow on a weekend because of, you know, just extenuating circumstances. But so I probably won't get as much knitting time this weekend as I usually do, but I still feel like I can finish the sleeves like in the next couple of days. But then the real kicker is this ribbing that still needs to go in the back, because it's ribbing and it just takes forever. And it's also half twisted rib, which is turning, like it just turned out so stunning, by the way, but it just takes a little longer, and that's okay. So it'll probably take me like another week, maybe 2 weeks to finish this sweater, and that's okay. It'll still be perfectly in time to wear for fall. So that is the update. But then for today, the plan is actually to go book shopping just a little bit, because like I thought that I wanted to start another audiobook, and the book that I picked out is The Count of Monte Cristo, but a lot of it references like French proper nouns, and I think that would just be easier for me to read to try and fully understand. And I also think that, you know, it's worth giving a classic your full attention. So I am gonna go book shopping today with the specific intent of purchasing that book, and maybe I will stop at a pumpkin patch along the way. I don't know, I have yet to do that. It's the end of October and I have yet to stop at a pumpkin patch. So if I can find one, I would love to stop. And if not, then I will go grocery shopping and pick up tiny pumpkins, because I I love like the little tiny pumpkins, they're so cute. Okay. Anyway, that's the plan. I am going to put on a finished sweater and go book shopping. We have 2 sleeves. It took me honestly about a week to get this one done, but I only have the back ribbing left to go, and I think I can get this done pretty quickly. But before I started on this, I wanted to do one more quick try on to kind of see how it's looking at this stage with 2 sleeves. So I'm gonna put this on really quick. Okay. Here we are. Oh my gosh. It's never not exciting to get this close to finishing a project. Okay, so I think the sleeves are a really good length before blocking, and honestly, I hope that they don't grow too much. They're sitting right at the end, like the bottom of my hand, which I think is a perfect length for me. I still like to be able to use my arms and my hands and not have them completely covered by my sleeves. So I think I am going to be pretty cognizant of that in blocking to try not to stretch these out anymore. But, oh, it's so sweet. Oh my gosh. Okay, I am so excited. It is now the 1st of November, which is insane. But my goal for this weekend is to finish the bottom ribbing and then get this guy blocking so that I can actually get some wear out of this as its own piece without having to then start layering too much over it as the weather gets colder. My Jeju sweater is finally finished, and I could not be happier with the finished result. It feels so good to finally have this sweater in my wardrobe after wanting to knit it for so many years. Now, very quickly, I wanted to recap all of the changes that I made to this pattern and kind of reflect on those choices. So, the first change that I made is I did short rows instead of doing the cast on method for the upper back panel, and I am very glad that I did that. I think it created just a little bit more of a seamless seam and mostly took away that kind of stair-step effect, so I am glad that I did that. I also closed in the neck opening just a little bit, and I do think that this fit is what I was looking for, and so I can't imagine this being a little bit wider. I think that the pattern is probably a little too wide in the opening, and if you do end up knitting this one, that is a change that I recommend. But overall, happy with that one. The one change that I made that I actually don't think was necessary is I knit the shoulders of a size 2, but then I only increased to the amount of stitches for a size 1 in the body. So really like the stitch difference between the shoulders and the body is like 4 stitches difference. It is not much at all. But I honestly think I could have gone for the size 1 shoulder and then just increased to the size 1 body. Like I don't think I needed to make that change because this drop is intense. Like the drop shoulder is all the way down here. And I still think it looks and feels super, super lovely. But that is one change that I probably could have done without. But I still really like the fit. And then the last modification that I made is I did add just a few decreases throughout the sleeves. So it still has an effect of being a fairly straight sleeve, but I think adding just the few decreases kind of minimized the bell effect that could happen at the end of the sleeve. Overall, so happy with the finished result. And honestly, this one was a lot of fun to make. So if you have not made a Jeju, I do recommend it. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you have knit a Jeju sweater or if you plan on making one in the near future. And I hope you made a lot of progress on whatever you're working on, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.